Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here, back for part 3 of my DDO Retrospective series. This is a series where I take a look back at prior updates in DDO, prior years in the game, share my thoughts and experiences, and give some of my opinions. If you missed part 1 or part 2, I'll link them below in the description. You can check those out. Last part we ended with update 17, so we'll start this time with update 18. Update 18 was Disciples of Shadow, which was a smaller update. This update more was a pre-update for update 19, which was the big Shadowfell Conspiracy expansion that was coming. This did a lot of prep work for that update. The main thing was give us 3 new adventures: Disciples of Shar, Escape Plan, and Shadow of a Doubt, which were all level 15. And that was important because level 15 was the starting level of the new iconic characters that were soon to come out in update 19. And these 3 adventures served as starter content for iconic heroes. They didn't want to bring out iconics at level 15 in Forgotten Realms, starting in Forgotten Realms, and have no content at their level to run there. So this served as starter content there. We saw a few other things like collectible revamps. I talked about this last part. I'm not going to go in depth about it. If you want to listen to that, you can listen to part 2. Not a lot else in this update. Again, like I said, this was more of a get ready update for update 19, and I don't have a whole lot to say about update 18. I want to spend the most of my time on update 19 in this video. Update 19, of course, was DDO's second expansion, the Shadowfell Conspiracy. It was an expansion, so you did not have access to it if you were a VIP even. Everybody had to shell out money for this. At the time, I think it was somewhere around $50, but nowadays you can get it for up to 85% off. They have a lot of sales. Do not buy this at full price if you don't own it. You can get it for really cheap nowadays. But there's a lot in this expansion. We got a level cap increase to 28, and 28 would stay the level cap up until the end of 2015 with update 29. So this was our cap for quite a while, 10 whole updates. We saw a total redesign of the heroic enhancements. This was the first enhancement pass, and this was very important, and it did a lot of good. Enhancements before the update 19 pass did not have a good visual graph for you to go by as you took your enhancements. Nowadays we have a tree that shows you all the prerequisites, it shows you where you can go in that tree, and it shows you what you need to take to get to where you want to be. But before update 19 we had a much more primitive interface. You could not see where you wanted to go. You basically needed a guide, or you needed someone to tell you about the prestige enhancements. I know me personally, I didn't even know about aura on my first few characters when I started playing, up until I think I was level 18 or 19, and someone made a comment while I was questing, was like, wait, you're a cleric, you're a healer, and you know of aura? And I'm like, what's aura? I didn't know about it because unless someone had told me, or I had read it on the wiki or the forums, which I didn't read at the time, there's no way to know about it because you couldn't actually see it in your enhancement section of the game. So it was awesome that they made this enhancement redesign. They also we saw a lot of a balance pass to the enhancements. A lot of enhancements. It wasn't just a design, an interface change. We saw a lot of redesign to the enhancements, a lot of balancing. We also saw the introduction of epic feats and epic destiny feats, and this was a logical progression because the cap was now 28. We needed new feats. And as I referenced before in the update 18 section, we got iconic heroes. We got Purple Dragon Knight, Sun Elf, and Blade Forged. The whole concept behind the iconic heroes was, hey, we're selling this expansion. We don't want players to have to go through all this old content in order to play the expansion. We want to give you the option to get to the expansion, get to the new Forgotten Realms content quickly if you would like. So that's what these iconic heroes did. It lets you start at level 15. The iconic heroes were not just a character that starts at level 15. They are completely new races. while they are based on existing races. Purple Dragon is based on human, Blade Forge is based on Warforged, and Sun Elf is based on Elf. They do have some differences. Purple Dragonite and Sun Elf not as much, but Blade Forge had one big difference that was a complete game changer, and that was the Reconstruct SLA. You could now build a melee and get Reconstruct. Spells like Heal and Reconstruct up to this point were only available on Arcane and Divine classes. You could not get that kind of healing, that level of self-healing on a melee, and this changed all that. As of this update, everyone had access to a button that let them fill their health bar up immediately. Blade Forge was very popular. It was very powerful at the time, and it's still very powerful today. Not as much because we see a lot more self-healing options that now compete with Blade Forge Reconstruct. But at the time, it was very powerful on a melee because there was no other way to get self-healing on classes like Fighter and Rogue. You couldn't get that level of self-healing. We also saw the introduction of the Spellcraft skill. We saw the introduction of Sagas, which are awesome. It gives you chances to earn extra XP if you run certain quests. It gives you more of an incentive to run a variety of quests rather than just one quest for max XP. We saw the inclusion of more Forgotten Realms content, which was the major selling point and the biggest part of this expansion. Including this expansion, we had 2 adventure packs, Wayloon Prison and the Stormhorns. Wayloon is okay. I've always felt mixed about it. Stormhorns is awesome though. It is hands down one of the best adventure packs ever made in DDO, in my opinion. Definitely the best adventure area DDO has ever made. If you want to hear my thoughts on that more in depth, you can check out my top 5 adventure areas video, which I will link below. Let's talk about Shadowfell for a minute. Shadowfell was not received near as well as Menace of the Underdark. Menace of the Underdark was a huge success, and Shadowfell wasn't received as well by the player base. And for me, that's one reason why I think we haven't seen another expansion in so long, is because of the reception Shadowfell got. And to this day, it's often jokingly referred to by players as Shadowfell. Couple big things players didn't like about this update. The main thing was the lack of a raid. It was a big issue to release a expansion without a raid. It doesn't really make sense. It just feels like you're being milked, and I think a lot of players felt like they were being milked by this expansion, because we saw this expansion and we just saw Menace of the Underdark not too long ago. And a lot of players lost interest in being VIPs. It's like, why would you continue to be a VIP if DDO is just going to keep releasing expansions that you have to pay for anyways? So after this, we saw a lot of, in following updates, we saw a lot of incentives added for VIPs, because the developers Turbine obviously saw that VIPs weren't that happy, and I'm assuming they were dropping off. Of course, I don't have access to the information, but we saw a lot of promotions for VIPs, like free hearts of wood and such. While I didn't have too much of an issue personally with Shadowfell, I do love the Stormhorns. I think that's just an amazing adventure pack, and Wayloon's okay. My real gripe with this pack is the introduction of microtransactions. I really disliked microtransactions, and I'm so glad they went away from this in future updates and they didn't continue this. But in Shadowfell, we saw the introduction of microtransactions, such as NPCs at the beginning of adventure areas that will teleport you for an Astral Shard fee to the quest directly. We saw the introduction of chest rerolls, where you can pay Astral Shards to reroll a chest. I just really hate that. I think it completely breaks immersion, and I think it crosses the line in terms of pay to win. And I'm so glad we don't see this in future content. One other thing we saw in this update was the introduction of the Hall of Heroes, which at the time was huge and empty. It's still pretty empty today, but there's more in it, and I hope they continue to utilize that area. I still don't understand why the Hall of Heroes has to be that big. It's so huge, but most of it's empty. I want to see that continue to be filled up. It also gave us if you are a VIP, the option to go to Forgotten Realms or Eberron directly from the starter menu. You can go to the Eberron Hall of Heroes at login screen, or the or the Forgotten Realms Hall of Heroes. So nice little travel option. That's going to be it for this part, guys. I will continue on with update 20 in the next part. Appreciate you listening. Please leave your comments below what you thought of the Shadowfell Conspiracy and update 18. As always, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I will see you all next time.